Okay. Hey, Michael, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for joining me. So I'm excited to talk to you about virtual fundraising. But first, why don't you tell me how are you doing? I know you just had a gala. I'm sure it's like a relief, but how are you just feeling overall right now in our post-COVID life?
Pretty good. Pretty good, all things considered. Yeah, I am happy we got a big fundraising event under our belt, a big virtual event that we'll talk about here. But yeah, a lot of pre-event question marks and how do we do this and how do we do that, and so that's what we'll discuss a little bit. But yeah, in general, it's good. So I'm already like shifting gears to year-end fundraising and what are we gonna do on
I know.
social?
Can you believe
Never
it?
ends.
We're in September. I
I
mean,
know.
it's come like the event season is here, I feel like, because it's just in the calendar of nonprofits, like this is the time where a lot of them ramp up for the end of the year giving and galas and events. So it's going to be an interesting event season.
Yes. To say the least, right?
Right. Yeah.
I feel, yeah, the last 6 months are like the slowest and longest period of time in my life.
Yeah.
Because each individual day feels really slow, maybe, but now
Mhm.
we're 6 months into COVID and whoa, we're already at year end.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your role. I know you're in development and maybe how long you've been with the organization and maybe and then a little background, just your career nonprofit.
yeah. Well, so I work for StandUp for Kids, Orange County. Our mission as an organization is to end the cycle of youth homelessness. So we work with youth and young adults ages 12 to 24 to get them off the streets, um, both to get them off the streets and to prevent them from ever ending up on the streets in the first place. So I'm the director of development with the Orange County chapter. And so my role is to bring organizational awareness, be the communications, marketing, fundraising person, advocate for the organization.
Mhm.
I've been in the role for a year, just over a year. I've got about 3 years of nonprofit experience total. I used to be an engineer, a civil structural engineer. So
Interesting.
yeah, so I got a master's in structural engineering and worked as an engineer for 10 or 12 years and just made a big life change at the beginning of 2018 to go in the nonprofit world. And here we go. Here we are 3 years later. And that's how I
Yeah.
met you, was through 10C originally.
Yes.
Uh, you were my instructor for some class of some
Training.
sort.
Some
And
training over there that I did, yeah. And
yeah,
you were with Wells of Life at the time, correct?
yeah. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so I used 10C as my platform to get educated on the nonprofit world. So I basically did a cram session with a year of 10C through the Champions for
Oh, the
Change
Champions for
Makers.
Changemakers. Yes. Yes, my
Yeah.
signature program. I was so proud of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an awesome program. We got sponsored by Pam Hedges, who's a
Okay.
board member
Yes, I
with
remember her.
1OC. Yeah, so she is awesome and got us a bunch of awesome training.
Yeah.
So
What a great testimonial for them right now.
yeah, there you go. What the heck?
Yeah, 1OC training and then that collaboration and merging of two missions, I mean, Pam was an individual. She was an individual board member that believed in professional development. I think her background, like she was in the HR world, so she definitely, I know, was all about professional development and so when she got the opportunity to pretty much sponsor an organization for training for a whole year, that's what she did and here's the product right in front of us. So what a great story, all for full circle. And now you're making an impact with StandUp for Kids. Um, and it's homelessness, so serving homelessness. Give us a little bit of background of homelessness landscape, specifically around youth in Orange County.
Yes. So it is something that I don't know, maybe the general public isn't as aware of as
Mm-hmm.
for the size of the issue that it actually is. So there is approximately 31,000 at-risk and homeless youth in Orange County.
Wow.
Um, in the in the age demographic 12 to 24 that are students in the student population.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a rough estimate based on data from college and university surveys, as well as OC Board of Education McKinney-Vento stats.
Okay.
And so, and McKinney-Vento is a federal act from the 70s or 80s that basically expands the definition of homelessness beyond sleeping under the stars. So it's
Yes.
a home stress environment where they might be living in a car or a motel room or a overloaded apartment
Mm-hmm.
with multiple families, etc. And so our mission encompasses that population as well as the sleeping under the stars population. So
Okay.
it's a population that is like hard to. I mean, I just quantified it, but it's also kind of a transient population. And there's the PIT counts, point in time counts that the county does for homelessness every 2 years. And it's hard to find our kids during that count.
Yeah.
So that's one of kind of the struggles is like quantifying and actually seeing the need that's there.
Got it. Yeah, it's even in listening to one of your podcasts in the virtual gala, I thought it was interesting when Carlia shared that the other reason why it's harder to identify is because as youth, I think they don't want to be they're very very conscientious of how they look, and like they actually don't want to draw attention because they know that it's really bad if they're caught being homeless. Like they'd send them somewhere, or so they're really trying to mask the fact that they're homeless by keeping clean and finding ways to clean their clothes. And I didn't think about that, that the level of there's shame, but then there's also this fear of actually being caught being homeless as an underage person.
Yeah, and that I'm not I've been in the field for a year, and so I'm
Yeah.
not the expert on Orange County homelessness by any stretch,
Right.
but I feel like at least in some cities that is changing at least a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
I know Costa Mesa specifically. I think, yeah, I don't know. Don't quote me on these, but there is a law or a statute or a something that if used to just you could basically arrest somebody for being homeless.
Right. Yeah.
Now you have to have a place for them to go.
Yes.
You need to have a shelter or a place that you can transfer someone who is homeless. And so Costa Mesa specifically, because I talked to a city councilman, they have a shelter that is doing just that. So they are, and then once they get into that shelter, they are doing active things to try to help that person and get them back on their feet.
Right. Yeah, there's lots of I know lots of programs out there for different types of homeless, target populations, and I think it's like you said earlier, a lot of people don't realize how large the youth population is, that it's growing. And define youth really quick, just so people know. For your age category, it actually extends beyond 18, correct?
Yeah, so we say youth, which is confusing to a lot of people, I'm sure, but because we go from 12 to 24.
Got it.
And 18 to 24 has a different nomenclature that we call transitional aged youth, or TAY. So TAY. So if you hear the term TAY youth, that's the 18 to 24 range. And then we categorize the 12 to 18 population as kind of our at-risk or McKinney-Vento population.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Well, let's get into more of your world and this, post-COVID virtual fundraising life, which I know so many nonprofits are constantly grappling with. Before it was like cancel, not cancel, postpone, what's going to happen. And then some just went for it. And I think you're a great example of an organization that just went for it, not knowing what was going to happen. And so let's just do it. So we're going to talk about two events that you've done already since March, since COVID hit. Your virtual run back in, was it June? And then the virtual gala, which just happened a couple days ago. And I'm really excited to get into the nitty gritty of how those came to be, how they, how they went, and then the success of them. Before we get into that, tell us how important these events are to your budget. Are you primarily living off of these types of events, or you have a good makeup of government, individual funds?
Yeah, we're pretty well diversified actually. The gala, this is the third annual event, and so the first two were they're our biggest fundraiser of the year. So taking this really nice physical extravaganza and then not being able to execute that as a physical event and kind of morphing that into a virtual entity was, I mean, it's a big priority. Like these are big special events. I don't know, maybe like 25% of our overall budget would be special events over the course of the year. And as you know, these types of events are places where you can bring new people into the fold. So new supporters, it's a great way to raise organizational awareness.
Right. Yes. So and I agree. I think that's what the biggest miss is how do you engage with the donor over camera, or video. You can maybe see, thanks to social media, you can see who's watching and see like, oh, I don't know that name. Like, how do we connect with them? But it's always more personal when you're in the room. So I definitely hear you. It's the galas are really meant for stewarding. Obviously, you want to make money too, but it's really that opportunity to bring new faces to your mission and to invite them. But I've seen some amazing stories come from the virtual as well, because social media, it's easier to share. It's easier to get into those algorithms. So I'm sure that played a part. So let's start with the virtual run. So was this your first year? Well, have you had a run in the past and it just had to turn virtual, or was this literally brand new?
Yeah, so maybe I'll even back up just a little bit further too. Okay. So to like 2020 fundraising plan, like, hey, what are we going to do this year and how's that all going to work?
Yeah.
So we set that up at the end of 2019 to say, okay, here's what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And then March hits and that, like, you might as well just throw it all up in the air and see what happens. And actually, in another event that we got involved in that we didn't really talk about, but the Help Them Home campaign.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you were part of that.
So we did we were the first timer in that virtual giving day or online giving day from Anaheim Community Foundation. So that was kind of our first thing that we did this year from a special event perspective. So that went really well, and it was nice getting to meet and interact with all the other leaders across the homelessness space in Orange County. So that was really cool, and we had a successful.
There were 19 of you, I believe.
Yes. So we had a really successful event there. Which was a question mark too. Like, hey, we haven't done this before. I'm not sure quite how this is going to go, but the ACF and the leadership of that giving day did a really great job of giving you the materials and the plans, and there was lots of meetings, and they made it really easy to have success on that.
What did that do? I'm curious for your social media, because that was 100% online and I remember it. It was April, correct? Yep. And it was just for a whole week. I just remember, because I follow a lot of the organizations, I just kept seeing the same visual logo on it, like popping up all over the place. What did that do for your following?
Yeah. So we have a relatively small following
Hmm.
in general that we definitely have initiatives to try to build on, and so that it definitely gave us a bump. I wouldn't say it was like a gigantic
Yeah.
change in our following, but it was definitely a really nice push, and all the sharing that happened across organizations was really cool.
Yeah.
Because you might think, hey, you're all in the same industry, you're all competing for the same donor dollars, but um, nobody in that 19 organization coalition had that mindset. So
Yeah.
it was
That's
cool.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard it was the most successful giving day that Orange County Community Foundation has had. 1.7 million
Yeah.
overall was raised,
They crushed it.
and for it being a month after the pandemic had happened, I think it was a great inspiring story and moment for all of us in the nonprofit sector, because I think at that point we were all worried about what does this mean for funding, what people are going to hold on to their money because they don't know what's going to happen in the future. And so for it to super exceed the expectations and the goals was very uplifting, I think.
Yeah. That was cool. That was like a harbinger of goodness.
Yes, yes.
It's not.
Okay, so moving forward, so
Okay.
you had Giving Day, and then what else
Yeah,
transpired?
I mean the 2019 2020 plan says, hey, we're going to do a physical 1K 5K in July.
Okay.
And it's going to be kind of a new donor type of event. But we're obviously all of our existing donor base is invited and whatever, but it was going to be kind of an opportunity to reach out to some other avenues like schools and churches maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then obviously with COVID, then those two populations just like closed up shop.
Yeah.
Um, and then obviously having a physical event that we were, it was the first annual event. It had never been done before for our organization. I have done it a couple times in the past
Okay.
with other organizations
Mm-hmm.
and had success. So I knew what the formula was.
Yeah.
So I felt, it's a new donor base and a new population. So I got to catalyze them and get them excited. But
Yeah.
I think it seemed doable. So we had targets of how many attendees we wanted to have, and
Okay.
but it was going to be way too many for what would have been deemed acceptable in this COVID environment. So we took it virtual then at that point. So we had about 3 months of planning, probably, as it being a physical event, and how we're going to market it and promote it, and what's the social media campaign going to look like.
Yeah.
Um, and then we had to spend a month and redo everything for this virtual theme. And so
Right.
what we ended up doing was basically like a 3 month ongoing like
Yeah.
wellness campaign was kind of the idea. Like,
Uh-huh.
hey, we're all kind of suffering. We're all sitting in our upstairs bedroom on our Zoom all day long, and we need a reason to get outside.
Yes.
So we're going to do this virtual elongated campaign,
Mhm.
and it's gonna be a fundraiser, but it's also gonna be a mileage challenge.
Okay.
And it was a walk, run, get outside type of a thing. And on a weekly basis, we're gonna tally up mileage and give away prizes for most walks or runs, most mileage, coolest picture. We tried to, make it fun and
Yeah.
make it this ongoing thing that gave people a reason to get outside in the midst of COVID.
Right.
Um,
3 months. That's a so. What? How did 3 months get chosen? Had you seen it done before? Or were you just being mindful of like engagement? Like what? Any reason for how long that was, or and would you do it again that long?
yeah, it's a great question. So I would say no, it's too long. Uh, I would probably, I don't know exactly. There's different schools of thought on a virtual run.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, a lot of virtual runs are just, hey, on this day,
Yeah.
one single day, we're going to go run a 5K, or we're going to run a 10K, or we're going to run a half. We went a campaign route. And, the COVID idea was in there as hey, we want to be a support system and build a community. But I think it was too long. I even if we were going to go that route, maybe it's a 6 to 8 week event in the future. But what we ended up doing at the end is pivoting it into more of the traditional virtual event. So we set the last day of the event, which was July 18th, as all right, this is our actual run day, and we aimed for 300 miles cumulative on that day, as a group. And so we had a Strava. We used Strava, which is a mileage, whatever. It's like Map My Run. So you press go when you start walking or running, and then you press stop when you're done, and it tallies your mileage. And over time, it counts how many miles you gave cumulative. And so we did prizes on a weekly, monthly, and entire event basis based on mileage and number of walks and things like that. And then, that last day we did 300 miles. So then all day long we were saying, hey, we're at 50 miles. Hey, we're at 100 miles. All right, get out and run for me. And then we were doing the same thing from a fundraising basis.
Okay. And how did you communicate with them? Was it through Strava? Was that the technology? Or explain Strava first. What did Strava accomplish for you?
Yeah, Strava was really, it has a means for communication, but it was really kind of just the tabulator of mileage and data around running and walking.
Okay. So when I signed up for the event, I had to get a Strava account then, correct?
Yeah, and it wasn't a have to, it was if you want to.
Okay.
So we wanted to be as inclusive as possible. So, hey, I'm not going to mandate that you need to have this app, but that's kind of what the fun of being in this campaign is to participate in that piece. So we maybe had like half of the overall attendees really kind of grab onto Strava, maybe half didn't. Asking people to download an app and record mileage and whatever, there's work involved. And so some people are like, you know what, I like to run, but I don't bring my phone with me or whatever. And so we didn't want to like pigeonhole anybody and
mandate it.
So tried to make it fun. And so then it was email. So we had all the participants email, and so they got a weekly email that tried to keep it fun and upbeat.
So then what was the technology used for registration and donor, and was that all in one, or were there multiple other technologies that you had to use?
Yeah, so we used a platform, it's called ohwhatfund.com. And so it's kind of like a GoFundMe page. It offered the opportunity to take a large group. It's OHWHATFUND.
Oh, what fun! Got it.
Yeah, so it's a play on Christmas.
Love it.
It's an event platform that could both do donations and registrations, and you could kind of like break into teams. And so the goal was, hey, there's the Mike Olson team or the Olson family team, and we were going to try to get as many runners and walkers and fundraise as much as we could, and that would go into this bucket, and then that bucket obviously transfers up to the overall event bucket. So getting companies, schools, churches to all create their own buckets and do their own little fundraiser that works towards this greater goal. And we have our Journey to Self-Sufficiency program, which is our 18 to 24, take a youth off the streets and get them into a stable situation program. The budget or the cost of that program is about $1,500. And so that was kind of a target fundraising goal that teams could aspire to. Try to raise $1,500, and you can take one kid off the streets and put them through our Journey to Self-Sufficiency program. So then, we ended up taking 20 kids off the streets with that fundraiser at the end of the day.
So your overall goal, I believe it was 30,000 for this event. And
Yeah.
how did you do
We got there on the day of.
on the day
Uh,
of? It's always on the day of, right?
yeah, it might have been the day after actually, but yeah, it's always like right on the brink,
Yes.
which is life as a fundraiser. I feel like in some
And did
ways.
you have any sponsorships for this event or matching donors, or was this all straight? Just you started at zero and raised a brand new $30,000.
Yeah, I mean, it basically started from zero, and we brought a couple of companies in. So
Okay.
United Health and Seabreeze Management Company were two um, entities that brought a bunch of runners, and they did a big chunk of fundraising for the
Oh, okay.
event. Um,
It sounds like a great corporate, um, good corporate wellness kind of program activity, given the times that we're in, because it can be a way for their corporate team members to stay connected if they're working from home, but then also give to a cause. So I could see it really growing in that space.
yeah, it has the potential for that for sure. And so that's going to be like what the future question is it virtual or is it physical moving forward?
Yeah.
There's flexibility in virtual, but there's kind of the uh, tangibility of physical, and
Yeah.
there's
Did
pros and cons.
did this help inspire new donors? Did it increase your individual giving, donor list? How did it do for you in those areas?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was another incremental step in
Mhm.
bringing new people in.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's utilizing all, you know, it's going after, it's giving an opportunity to kind of a new population of running people that we've never tried to really target before. So it brought in some of those. It brought, it's always a mix, right? You get your
Yeah.
hardcore supporters that are going to do whatever you do because they're
Yes.
awesome, and then there's some crowd. It's a crowdfunding type of
Yeah.
campaign. So friends tell friends, and other friends tell other friends, and it kind of grows organically. Um,
Right.
and then year over year, hopefully, then next year, all the new people that came this year will now then extend the audience a little bit further and a little bit further.
That's good. And so what about your board? What type of role did your board play in this particular event, given that it was brand new, it was during COVID, and everything was changing? How did they show up, or how did they need to show up during this time?
Yeah, yeah. So the board was a key player in kind of all of these initiatives.
Hmm.
Um, Board members had teams and had the Help Them Home campaign had individual fundraisers as well, and so we had board members in all of these campaigns.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a balance. Like some board members would do these two and not this one, or some did all three, and some really were gala focused
Mhm.
because yeah, and all of these are new things for the Most of these are new things for the organization except the gala, and so the board one of their main fundraising things is the gala. So
Mhm.
that's where they really always come and step up. And so we added some extra reasons for them to step up this year, and they did. And so it was really cool to see that engagement.
Well, cool. Well, that's a good segue. Let's talk about that then. Let's talk about the gala. So this was last
Last Thursday,
last
so it was
Thursday. Okay, so
the
just
17th.
happened, fresh in the
Yep.
brain. So let's start with, what did this used to look like? What was it supposed to look like?
Right. So if we go back to the beginning of 2020, this is going to be an April event that is physical. It's in Costa Mesa at the Chuck Jones Center. It's about 200 people. It's got an MC. It's got the gala components. It's got food and
Yeah.
drink and asking and MCs and music and photo booths and fun. And the board drives a lot of the attendance. So we ask our board members to purchase a table or get us a table of 10 people to come to the thing. And so, I mean, in March for an April, yeah. So it's going to be in April, and in March, I mean, the writing was on the wall, or not the writing was on the wall,
Right.
but, things were starting to happen in January.
Yeah.
So in January, you start to get a little nervous. February, you get a little more nervous. And we, had lots of meetings at that time of like, oh my God, what are we going to do? This is our biggest fundraiser of the year.
Right.
We really need this event. How are we going to do it? And eventually it was basically out there that, it was not safe to do what we wanted to do. So at that point, we kind of put it on pause and said, hey, we're going to, and I think a lot of organizations kind of had to do this and decide like, okay, is this going to go away in 6 weeks? And then we can do it in July or June or August or September, or like, what's that going to look like? And then as the months went on, by I think about June, we said, you know what, the likelihood of us being able to do a physical thing before year end is slim and none.
Right.
And so we wanted to still have an opportunity to engage our donors. And we had done a lot of good stuff. And so, and it's our 30th year as an organization. So this was actually going to be like this really special event for us to kind of really toot our own horn for being around for 30 years and all the impacts that we've made. And we've, on social, we've done a lot of stories about past youth, and like our IT guy right now, he was a youth in our program in 1996 or 1994.
Oh, wow.
So he was like, we're founded in 1990. He came along in 1994 to 1996, had some separation time, but he's literally been like with the organization forever. We helped him get his life together way back when. And now he's our director of IT and is like Johnny on the spot and gets all kinds of great stuff done for us. And so he had we told his story. Yeah. We told his story, and we wanted him to come to our physical gala and whatever. So there's all these really cool things that we want to share. And of course it's a fundraiser and we need the money for our kids. So, so then we went into, all right, we're going to go virtual.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what the heck is that? And what do you do with that? So then you do the research phase of what is it? How do you do it?
And what did that look like? What did that entail? Like, how would you say your committee shifted, and how did your mentality shift to going virtual?
Yeah, so it turns into a little more of a technical thing than a tangible thing, like flowers and centerpieces and decorations, and that doesn't matter really anymore. So you now need a guy who knows how to press buttons on the internet, or a team of those people that can make it happen. And you need video and sound and all the techie stuff, and that really wasn't. So we have a gala committee, but nobody's really that techie on that committee. So how are we going to do it? So how long is it going to be? When's it going to be? What are the components that make it up? So we had lots of meetings about what does it look like. And then you get Zoom fatigue as a concept that you're not really thinking about in June necessarily, because it hasn't been that long yet. But now we're in July, August, September, and you're like, oh man, our regular gala would have been, it's a 4-hour long event. It's from 7 to 11. I don't think people are going to stick around that long in the virtual space. So how do we condense it? What's the most important pieces that need
Yeah.
to come through?
Right.
And so then you start figuring that out. Like, we ended up with like 10 components that were like, okay, these 10 things need to happen over the course of this time period.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start looking at other examples of galas, both good and bad, and tips and tricks, and try to bring the most engaging product that you can.
Yeah.
And like you said with social, so that there's lots of downsides to virtual gala from a ambiance and atmosphere and emotions aspect that you can't create. Or
Yeah.
you can try, but you're not gonna.
Right.
It's an uphill battle versus a physical, feel good situation. So you do everything you can to try to generate that in a virtual space, but it's hard.
Yeah.
But on the other side of the fence, you do have the ability to reach out to a much, much wider audience
Yeah.
that wasn't going to buy a $150 ticket to sit at the table, but for a free event that's on Facebook, and they're on Facebook every day anyway.
Yeah.
So what the hey, I'll check them out.
Right. Well, especially
So
if in social media, I mean, I jumped into your Facebook feed for a little bit, and it's powerful when you are tagging people or you're encouraging people to share and like, and I mean, algorithms are a real thing, and they work to your advantage. You know, they're a little scary sometimes, but they can work to your advantage. And so you guys were on Facebook and YouTube. So were you using something that streamed simultaneously at the same time, or did you have to like be on two separate platforms to do that?
yeah, okay. So the linchpin in the success of this event, having not a lot of technical expertise, was getting a person who had that.
Okay.
And so we found a volunteer, Rick Moscoso, who deserves a lot of credit for the success of this event. And he uses a platform called StreamYard. That's StreamYard.com. And it allows you to produce online events and live stream them to multiple platforms at once. So we were running
StreamYard.
StreamYard, StreamYard.
Okay.
And so it had a studio, it had a virtual studio that we could all. It's one word, I think.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I'm sure if you Google
but
it, it'll come up.
yeah, Google it. But it's a platform that allowed you to hook right into your YouTube, Facebook, and probably other platforms as well.
Okay.
And what the cool thing is, you could control the comments
Oh,
for your event as well, right through that one spot. So we had Rick in the studio. We had my computer in the studio that was actually the video and audio for the
okay.
event. And then we had team members that were the moderators for the social media platforms
Okay.
that were
So
running all of the social media through there.
you keep saying the studio. So were you all in the same room? Were you all still virtual? Was this
Yeah,
like
so
a war
it's a
room?
there was a physical studio, but what I'm talking about is a virtual studio.
Okay.
So it's like the platform that we are on right now.
Okay.
But there's people off screen and people on screen, and
Okay.
it's kind of the bullpen, this virtual bullpen for people executing the event.
Okay.
Um,
Gotcha. So you could see, like, right now I can see you in the stream, but then I see things underneath that I can bring in on pause or they're on standby. Now, how about while this is all going on, are you guys also physically all together, or were you also doing this in your respective homes?
Yeah. So, well, and that gets to kind of the structure of the event. So we ended up landing on about a 1 hour event, and we did
Mhm.
a 30-minute pre-show, and we'll have to put a link to it
Yeah,
in
sure.
this feed. Uh, but and it was basically a bunch of pre-recorded segments. I don't think I'm giving anything away by saying that, because you
No.
can tell pretty easily when you watch it. Uh,
Yeah.
and then there was a live MC, and so there was two live people that were. One was the MC who hosted the event and kind
Mhm.
of led everybody through and
Yeah.
talked it out, and then there was another person who did the fund and need.
Yes.
So
Shoddy. Right, that was shoddy.
Nishant and Shadi, so two of our advisory board members,
Mhm.
they were the live on air talent in the physical studio that was at my house.
Oh. Okay. Great.
Um,
And
yeah,
then you had pre-recorded videos. I'm assuming those were like from your donors or from like the thank yous and the stories. So those were all pre-recorded that you kind of just played when it was time to go.
yep.
Okay.
So we had past youth, current youth, some corporate supporters, staff, kind of all the pieces and parts that you would likely have in a
Mhm.
physical environment, but now just in a virtual way.
Got it. Yeah. And so, yeah, I noticed you had, so on your registration promos, the event was an hour, but then you did have a pre-show. So explain, well, the purpose of the pre-show and what that entailed. I know there was like a little podcast that you and Carlia did. So talk about the reason for the pre-show.
Yeah. So this came from Rick, our volunteer guy, who's done a lot. He was the expert on the team on this subject, and so he said, when a lot of people will jump on a little bit early,
Mhm.
just so that if they have technical difficulties or they're trying to figure out where to go, it gives them a little buffer time,
Okay.
similar to what you'd do on a Zoom meeting or whatever. So while they're in the room, you have an opportunity to show them something or keep them entertained or try to teach them something. And so we made a little like pre-program for 30 minutes.
Okay.
And it gave us an opportunity to highlight um, our our newest initiative, which is our podcast
Oh, okay.
that we're launching. It's not out yet. It's launching on October 1st.
Okay.
So it's called Listen Up, the Stand Up for Kids podcast.
Love it.
Uh, so
Great.
we did a couple clips, so little sneak preview clips of what that's going to be about. So that was in the pre-show, and then we did a past video that was really moving, and then we did a clip from Kia.
Mhm.
Kia is one of our big corporate supporters that joined us in 2020, and they did an awesome campaign around homelessness for the Super Bowl.
I remember.
And yeah, so they have some really moving clips. So we took some of those, and we had some in the pre-show, and we actually had some in the official show as well.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
that's
And
the thought process.
yeah, no, I thought it was smart. Yeah, I hear that with a lot of people that it's people are going to test out their technology, and you kind of don't want them to figure it out right at the start of show because you want to get started at that time. So I thought
Yeah.
that was smart. And then then into the show or into the agenda, you got to a fund the need, and I think this is the one thing that nonprofits are grappling over, like how do we do that, how do we still make it fun and engaging and encourage people watching to give. So you had a live person putting out the asks. I noticed that as the money was being announced or coming in, she gave out thank yous. What was the thought process behind that, and did you end up reaching the goal? Were there matches already? Were there kind of staged givers already ready? Um, Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, one of the, it's an awareness event, it's a showcase event, it's a thanking event, but it's also a fundraising event. And so, how are you going to actually make money so that we can continue doing the mission? And yeah, we definitely wrestled over exactly how to do that. Because in a physical version, we always have a silent auction. We typically have a live auction, and we typically have a raffle. And the and so I guess I'll just explain what a fund in need is for somebody
Mhm.
who doesn't know what that definition is. But it's basically for a certain amount of money,
Yeah.
you can do you can make a tangible impact in a certain way that is defined by the organization or the nonprofit. And so
And you
we
had
kind
levels,
of,
like, you had
yeah,
levels
we have
of that
levels.
that were announced
Yeah,
ongoing, which I think was smart, rather than just say, "Okay, who wants to give X?" But really quantifying, like, what X would do for
yeah,
your organization.
yeah. That's a key part of it is painting the picture on, hey, here's exactly what this money will do to impact homelessness.
Mhm.
So
Good. It would
yeah,
look very successful. She did an amazing job. She kept her energy. It's hard when there's nobody in front of you. It's hard. It really is. Like I've done it myself, and you live off of extroverts like myself. You live off of the energy of others, and you get more excited when you see those paddles go up or when you see people giving. And so to just be standing there and like trying to get people excited in their homes, like it's hard. It's very hard. So she did a wonderful job. Kudos to her. Um,
yes,
and I'm sure everyone
yeah,
else is like sitting there, like, keep going, like you're doing good.
yep, yep, yep. Because I was in the room with her as she's going, and I'm trying to direct
Yeah,
comments and okay, when do we move to the next price point and how like, let's keep it moving too.
yeah,
So it ended up working out well. We've been
good.
wrestling with like, okay, if we're gonna do this again virtual, would we do it in the same pattern?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So talk about that. What would you do differently? Thinking for any of the events, the run, the gala, anything that pops to mind really quickly. Like, what would you do differently?
yeah, I mean the $64,000 question is, would you go physical or virtual?
Yeah.
If COVID's gone, there's arguments that maybe you stay virtual on some of these things, and there are
Mhm.
pros to doing that.
Yeah.
And I don't think we haven't made decisions on the run or the gala for next year at this point. And
Oh.
obviously, it's really soon to COVID is still such a wild card, and
Hmm.
I don't want to be a doom and gloomer, but in a year, there's nothing. You never know.
Yeah.
So we're kind of planning for. I think we're planning for physical events, but having it in the back of our mind that hey, if we need to go virtual, we know how to do it. Um,
Yeah,
and
it's
yeah,
nice having that reassurance now that like, okay, we've done it at least once and we can
yeah,
easily pivot.
yeah. Um,
Okay.
and then on the like the fund to need part, we one of the things we talked about is kind of just sprinkling that chunk of the program,
Mhm.
just kind of feeding it over the course of the night. So still having very specific price points about what this level of a donation will do for the mission, um, but maybe not just devoting like X period of time to that and having the MC sort of continuously
Yeah.
uh, bring that up. And then as the live money comes in, still kind of having that sprinkle through as well. So just kind of a sprinkling, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
And what about with your sponsors and donors? You had to have had some money already in for the April event. Did they stick with you for the virtual? Were they just kind of all into it?
yeah, that was actually a really refreshing thing because that is one of the things like, hey, you sponsored an event and that event is no longer, that event is in
Different.
a, yeah, it's different.
Yeah.
So, but literally, all of our sponsors basically said, "Hey, this
Right.
the kids need it. You
Right.
know, we whatever happens. We're good."
Good. And so then did you just kind of change up their benefits package based on whatever they gave? And um, were you able to add new donors given that you're virtual? Because I've heard nonprofits come into this new funding stream because there's a different market out there for individual or for companies that lean into the social media, and they're definitely all for, their logo on the screen when this is happening. So did it open up any donor opportunities?
I think it could.
Okay.
I think in the moment we didn't fully. How do I want to say that? We didn't. There was a lot of production and a lot of other things that were moving parts that I don't
Yeah.
think we like leveraged ourselves in that way as much as we could have.
Okay.
But there's definitely, like you said, there's opportunities to grow in that new way.
Yeah.
So yeah,
There's potential.
yeah, there's new potential. I mean, it's harder. Just I think most people would agree it's harder to sell a sponsorship in this virtual social media event versus a physical in-person event. I mean, you could pro and con that too, I'm sure,
Yeah.
but I think it's new. It's new, so I don't think companies are. I don't know, and I may be underestimating companies too, but in this new landscape, I don't know that they're ready to like. Maybe it's not for us, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's my personal opinion that I think we have a higher likelihood of success with sponsorships still in the traditional physical space.
Okay.
Uh,
That's fair. Yeah, I think I know, there's been a couple orgs I've talked to, and there's just a small tech company local that is because we're in need of technology more, or internet bandwidth, that they just want to get their name out there, and it's a prime time, and it's been good partnerships. And so I always I think there's always room for bigger partnerships and different partnerships when you stretch yourself too into these different arenas. And this has definitely stretched nonprofits into a whole nother environment. And so I'm excited for what that could do. One last question as we kind of come to an end here. What did this do then from a cost standpoint? So there's no venue, there's no food, there's no flowers. You said, what did it do for your net?
in general, it's way cheaper to do a
Yes.
virtual event than a physical, and I guess that is dependent though on the technology
Mm-hmm.
access that you have. So if you're yeah, so I guess maybe what I said is not necessarily true. We
Mm-hmm.
happen to have a volunteer who ran
Right.
our show that you might have to pay a lot of money for.
Right.
And we went relatively low tech on the video and audio.
Okay.
So you could definitely ramp up the quality, and you could pay a lot of money to get studio level clips and pieces and parts that could all add up to maybe it would be more money at the end of the day. But the
Yeah.
way we did it and the volunteers that we had with us, basically, we had to buy a few cords, and that was most of the cost. We bought a microphone too, so it was like really almost $0. Um,
Yeah.
and the physical space that we have done our past two galas in, actually, we have a amazing donor who gave us the space and the catering for free for the last 2 years of that event as well. So they're similarly priced because we have really awesome supporters who
Right.
provide those things. Um,
Good. Well,
so
that's a
yeah.
win-win on both sides. So it sounds like maybe your net was even greater, aside from staff time, right? Because I'm sure you spent more time figuring it out than you would have an event that you've done year over year now. that you're just, it's just a well-oiled machine, right? You know what to do, you know the timeline. You
Yeah,
once you set it up once, it's set up for forever, unless with minor tweaks. So I'm sure there was a lot more manpower needed here because new,
it's
you
a
know.
whole new thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, any last final thoughts for those listening or that will listen about virtual fundraising? Any words of wisdom as a development director? And now you can put this, under your belt, right? Virtual fundraising
yeah.
in the time
Uh,
of COVID.
I mean, so and doing the research for executing these events, I think you just gotta not be afraid.
Yes, I love
Like you need to do something.
that.
So even if you're not sure on execution details, like your nonprofit needs you to do something.
Yeah.
So get creative and make it happen.
Don't be afraid, get creative, make it happen. I love it. I think that's the mantra of the year, right? And COVID against nonprofits. Yeah, I agree. You just got to try it out. I mean, we're all learning. I feel like this year, because of where we are, there's a bit more grace too in trying
Yes.
stuff out and doing it. So I'm all for the craziest thought you've ever thought of, because now's the time
Throw it on
to,
the table, see what happens.
yeah, now's the time to do it and not feel bad about it, because hey, we're all figuring it out. So might as well go as crazy as possible.
Yeah, and especially if it's not too hard on the budget.
Right.
If it's a relatively low risk thing you're trying out, then what the heck?
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank
Cool.
you, Mike. It's been always a pleasure talking to you, always a pleasure catching up. Congratulations on all three events this year. It sounds like it's been obviously challenging as for everyone, but you guys have made the most of it, and I've been you personally, having seen you guys by coming to the Hive and being a part of trainings, that you definitely know how to utilize resources. So I know you've got a lot of volunteers behind your social media and marketing and now your events. So bravo to that volunteers are a lifeline, and I think you guys do an amazing job at leveraging volunteers. So congrats.
Yeah, our volunteers are huge, so I want to thank them too. If any of them happen to be listening, yeah, we couldn't do what we do without them. And
Wonderful.
thank you, Victoria. I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate
Yeah.
your mentorship and support. So
Oh,
thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime. Anytime. You guys are doing great work. Well, thank you,
Okay,
and we'll talk to
thank you.
you soon.
Sounds great. Thanks.